Minglaba, good afternoon. We'll begin the webinar in a few minutes. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. On behalf of UNESCO STEM project, we are pleased to welcome all of you to our 7th webinar series, Enhancing Media, Information and Digital Literacy Skills among Teachers and Youth. My name is Katie, and I work with UNESCO Education team. My colleague, Hekyu, and I will be facilitating today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. Interpretations available in both Myanmar and English. If you're using a laptop or desktop, you should see interpretation icons at the bottom right. If you're using a mobile, my colleagues will place the instruction in the chat box. If you have any question for the presenter, please use Q&A chat function. You can also ask questions in either Myanmar or English. Our panelists will try to answer some of your questions. There's also a dedicated Q&A section after the speaker, where you will try to answer as many questions as we can. At the end of each speaker, we'll provide brief takeaway message that summarize the main point of their presentation. The session will be recorded and subsequently placed on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Toward the end of the webinar, we will send you a link to complete our survey on today's webinar. Today, we have 3 international and national experts who will speak about the concept and importance of media, information, and digital literacy in knowledge society, how media, information, and digital literacy competency can be integrated and applied in teaching learning activities. We will also hear the sharings of the experience and lesson learned from MIL and digital literacy training to teachers and youth in Myanmar. To begin this webinar, I'd like to invite Mr. Ichiro Miyazawa, UNESCO Head of Office, to deliver the welcoming remarks. Ichiro, over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Mingaraba, Neikaunla, Name Ichiroro Kobade, Tueada Wanta Bade, Chano Myanmasa Tinnede, Ayan Nyande. So please allow me to speak English for this opening remark to welcome you. This is the UNESCO webinar 7. And then this time we cover such an important topic for everyone, every one of us globally. And then please allow me to start asking you a question. How many hours on average are you online? Please think of your 24 hours. How many hours do you sleep, right? How many hours in front of PC connected? How many hours you are watching YouTube on your mobile, tablet? How many hours? And then I checked statistics, latest statistics. Would you know the longest hour country on average, daily average? Maybe it's difficult to tell, but then it's South Africa, more than 10 hours online connected. Second country, congratulations, Ramon, your country, Philippines, more than 9 hours. And then Brazil, Thailand, some other Asian countries. So yes, so many countries on average, right? They spend more than 10 hours or 8 hours. And if I think about myself, I'm sure I spend 16 or 17 hours. 3 hours, maybe 5, 6 hours. And then otherwise, I'm always connected, PC, tablet, or mobile phone, which is a bit crazy. such a nice word, right? Which means anytime, anywhere we want to get whatever we want to. We can watch whatever we want to watch, and information, whatever we want to know, we can check. Right? Such a wonderful, wonderful technology, right? But then also the important point for us to recognize is this is not one way, right? This is not one way that I am getting information, but actually the system is watching us, as you know. Right? The system, whatever you call big data or GAFA, they are accumulating knowledge on us very precisely. Right? And then actually the system knows better than we know ourselves, because our memory is gone. But the system, whole system, they have been logging, accumulating all knowledge about us. Right? Sometimes we don't know who we are. Sometimes we don't know what we are interested. Sometimes we don't know what we want to do. But then the system knows much better than we do. So some years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, some people started to say, hey, our brain is already hacked. Right? Based on the information, data we gave already unconsciously, in a sense, right? Because we click, we search, right? We watch whatever we like, right? And then we are already hacked. So then whatever we buy, we go, we do, basically it's about already our brains hacked. Right? So in a sense, we are already manipulated to some extent. Scary, right? Very scary, but that's the reality. Technologically, it's happening, as you know, and this is not happening this year. It's been happening almost like last 5 years. There was a documentary film I liked. I think I watched it 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe some of you watched the title Great Hack. And this documentary is telling a story about Facebook and Cambridge Analytics. The story was simple. Facebook provided, or maybe, I don't know, sold, right, the big data about us, individual data, to the Cambridge Analytics, right? And then Cambridge Analytics, they use our data to hack us. And actually they did it in the United States. They hack ourselves to vote for President Trump. And I'm not so sure this is 100% true or not. But if it's true, very unfortunate. And this is one of the cases, technologically possible. Maybe they have done, we don't know, right? So as long as if we are manipulated for the sake of benefit or politics, whatever, right? It's so dangerous. But then also at the same time, right? Is it possible for us to use our advocacies, right? If we have a good message, or let's say promoting SDG 4, right? Which was agreed so many people, and we believe, right? We may have some good message to disseminate. And then normally we do advocacy, webinar, right? Conference, but then our advocacy, we know it doesn't reach too much, right? It's not changing anything sometimes under the name of advocacy, right? But if we use technology like this, hacking, conveying good message, are we okay? Ethically very difficult, right? Very difficult to tell. It's so controversial, maybe, obviously now, right? Anyway, so this is the generation, the technology surrounding us already, like it or not. If you don't like it, you can shut down everything. Let's go to the village, fine. Yes, we can, maybe we can live simple life. But then as long as we want to enjoy data, information coming to us, this is the reality we have to recognize. So then, anyway, so I'm sure my time is almost over. The point is, looking at this reality, what kind of support do we want to create for the teacher and the youth, right? And then, of course, toward the children in the future. Anyway, we have a great speaker today, 3 speakers today, and let's enjoy the discussion. Important point is maybe we are not coming up with any answer, but then let's raise a lot of questions for us to think for the future. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Ichiro, for your wonderful welcoming speech. Now, moving on to the highlights of today's webinar, the presentation of our panelists. Fortunately, we will have 3 professional guest speakers today, Ramon, Zoe, and Ted. The first speaker is Ramon, Mr. Ramon Gonzalo Tuazo. He will provide us with the concept, principle of MIL, how to set MIL parameters, and the integration of MIL in teaching and learning activities. Please allow me to read his short bio. Mr. Tuazo is media specialist in UNESCO Myanmar office. He is also the Secretary General of 50 years old Asian Media Information and Communication Center. He is also co-author of MIL curriculum for teachers and media and information literate citizens. Think critically, click wisely. He successfully lobbied for the integration of MIL as senior high school subject in the basic education curriculum in the Philippines. Beyond this, he was an advisor of the project team which provided technical assistance to UNESCO Cambodia and the Ministry of Posts and Telecommunication in the design of media, information, and digital literacy framework for Cambodia. Ramon, over to you.
Thank you very much, Casey, and thank you, Ichiro, for a very good overview of how important media and information literacy is. Let me now open my screen so that, okay. Yes. Sorry, not ko pala nakita. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, Ramon, could you please change it to presentation mode?
Yes. Okay, presentation mode. So I would like to start with a statement that MIL, or meal, is the means to lifelong learning in today's knowledge society. MIL is key to transforming education. I have 6 topics, but because of limited time, I will select only the slides I will present. The other slides I will leave with you to review at your own time, to study at your own time. My presentation will be very broad in the sense that I would leave the details to my 2 other colleagues who will follow my presentation. They can provide the more details in terms of our discussion, especially of digital literacy. I will talk about defining MIL, why the need for MIL as a composite concept, parameters in developing school-based MIL teaching learning activities, and proposed parameters and integrating digital literacy in school learning. And finally, some concluding statements. I'll start, let me begin with an updated definition of MIL. If you look at the definition, what is important to recall is that it involves a set of competencies. A set of competencies which should be used in critical, ethical, and effective way. These competencies as individuals, not only as teachers or as young people, each one of us should have this set of competencies because they will enable us to be critical, ethical, and effective in using information, media, and digital content. Okay. We also define media to broadly cover both traditional mass media and the now popular social media. Remember, we're talking of media and information literacy. So I'll start by defining what media is. Media covers traditional mass media like radio, television, newspapers, magazines, movies, cinema, and so on. But now, media has expanded to include your favorite social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and the different applications, messaging applications. Information is data, as we all know, which is processed and organized to have meaning and be useful. Right? So information resources are both offline, such as print materials, or online, or what you get in the internet. What is important is information sources include memory institutions. And I would like to highlight this because when we talk of media and information literacy, many people think of media channels and platforms. But UNESCO's definition of media and information literacy includes memory institutions, which refers to libraries, museums, and archives. So as teachers, you should not forget this. There can be MIL activities involving the use of libraries, museum, and archives. Here's a checklist of information and media sources: mass media, social media, internet, mobile phones, smartphones, Androids, feature phones, and other technology gadgets like iPads and so on. Right? And how about what are the other types? Books and so on. No? Books, IEC materials, advertisements, music. Look, the listing includes music, list of lyrics of songs. Because if you come to think of it, if you listen to the lyrics of the songs, they have a lot of meaning. No? Are the meanings integrated in the songs positive? Do they promote positive values? Or do they connote negative things? So lyrics of songs of music are part of media and information literacy. And as I said earlier, libraries, museums, and archives. But there is such a thing as technological convergence. What do we mean by technological convergence? Well, it means that all these different media and information gadgets that we use can now be experienced and can now be accessed using just one single gadget. For example, your smartphone. If you recall now, using your smartphone, you can watch television, you can listen to radio, you can read newspapers and journals using your smartphone. You can watch YouTube, you can use your social media, your Facebook. Very interesting. Using the same smartphone, you can also go to museums and libraries. You don't have to go to these areas, to these memory institutions physically. You can see the displays of museum. You can, for example, go to Louvre Museum in Paris by just the click of the button in your mobile phone. That is what we mean by technology convergence. Let us now discuss the need for media and information literacy. MIL provides competencies that are very, very critical in today's knowledge society. There are three key words: discernment, expression, and action. Discernment means critical thinking, knowing what is right and what is wrong, what is good and bad. MIL enables you to have discernment. What is a good content? What is a bad content? Right? What is a good media and information and digital content? How can you use this content for positive uses, for education, for livelihood, for getting health-related information, how to improve productivity, and so on. The other very important word is expression. Media and information literacy should enable you to express yourself using whatever format or platform that you would like to use. You can go verbal, oral, music, painting, photography, whatever channel or format you use. Media and information literacy should enable you to express yourself. And the third very important aspect is that MIL enables you to practice or perform, to do communication tasks responsibly and ethically. Those are two very important variables. You know, many of us do a lot of things. We produce a lot of materials, we produce a lot of content, and yet we are oblivious. We are oblivious that we should produce, we should consume media and information content responsibly and ethically. If you look at the second paragraph of my screen, it also says that MIL provides competencies to be aware of persuasive techniques. And this is very urgent now. This is very important now because we are experiencing the challenges of information disorder. You know, MIL, therefore, will give you competencies to be aware of persuasive techniques being used. Are you being exposed to true and correct information? Is the information or media content being given to you part of advertising? Is it a PR message? Is it a public relations message? Is it a propaganda message? Is it false information? Sometimes it is very difficult, especially for young people, to discern whether what they are looking at, whether what they are consuming is advertising or PR or propaganda. Many others, sometimes like you and me, are not able to discern whether what we are reading or watching or viewing or listening to is false information or what is popularly referred to as fake news. Incidentally, we at UNESCO do not favor the use of the word fake news. Why? Because it's an oxymoron. It's a contradiction of term. News is supposed to be a verified, true, accurate information. So how can you have a fake news if fake is not accurate, it's not true, it's not verified? So the preferred term that we want to use is false information. Another very important aspect that you could see in my screen is that through media and information literacy, we're able to understand media representation. What do we mean by media representation? It means how certain individuals, groups, communities, and even events are being portrayed in media or information sources. How are they projected in media or information sources? It involves stereotyping, instilling prejudice. I ask the question, for example, how does media project women? Are they presented as sex objects, or are they presented as empowered individuals? What is the common picture when you say women in media? No? So how are they represented? Ethnic communities, for example, how does media present ethnic individuals or ethnic communities? Are they presented as backward individuals? Are they presented as modern individuals? So we have to be very careful at how media and information sources projects individuals, groups, and events. It is very important so that we would know whether stereotyping is involved, whether these messages inculcate prejudice, stereotyping, bias, and discrimination. Without MIL competencies, it would be very difficult for us. These are I listed down 9 specific reasons why we need media and information literacy. As I said earlier, I don't want to spend time on these 9 issues. Some of them will be discussed by my co-panelists, but I encourage you to review this, and perhaps if you have queries, you may even email me personally so I can explain all these 9 reasons listed on why we need media and information literacy. I'll go very fast. I'll identify some very critical reason. I want to highlight, for example, the second point in this slide. What we now have is that media convergence, which I described earlier, has transformed each one of us, you and me, into prosumers. What do I mean by prosumers? Each one of us is not only a consumer or a user of content, we are also producers of content, right? Especially young people. Young people can easily produce the information or content that they want and then share it with their peers, with their friends, with your family. So each one of us is a prosumer, producer and consumer. But my question, what kind of producer and consumer are you? Are you a responsible and ethical producer and consumer of media and information content? So those are some of the reasons why we need to be media and information literate. You know, Ichiro mentioned earlier about the number of hours that we spend with our gadgets, with our technology. It is very alarming that even young people now use technology. Children as young as 2 or 3 years old They are now exposed to technology because older people like you and me, we don't have time to watch over them. So we use technology to babysit, right? We use technology for babysitting. But do you know that the American Pediatric Association has said that children below 2 years old should have 0 screen time. Wow. 0 screen time for children below 2 years old. How about children from 2 to 5 years old? What is an ideal screen time? According to APA, the ideal screen time is 1 hour or less. Those who are parents or older siblings, I asked you, how much time do you allow younger siblings or your children to use screens, to use cell phones, or watch television, or use iPads? Are you within the limit set by specialists? That is part of being media and information literate even inside your homes. So here are other reasons. Technology addiction resulting in psychological impacts. Wow. Use of technology can be addictive. And what you want, what you watch, what you use your technology for can create dependence and addiction. You're addicted to the type of content that you are always exposed to. That's very alarming. Very, very alarming. So all of these are very useful insights on why we need media and information literacy. Okay, let me now go to the topic, meal as a composite comp. The second edition of UNESCO MIL book called Media and Information Literate Citizens Think Critically, Click Wisely has included digital literacy as the third element, as the third core element. The other main elements, as identified in the first edition, are media literacy and information literacy. That is why in the title of our webinar, we said media, information, and digital literacy to highlight the importance of digital literacy as the third core element. This is the book that I'm referring to. This was published only in 2021. I was fortunate to have been invited to be one of the authors of this book. And I will share the link so that you can download this. So the second edition of this book has 23 elements from the original 12 elements. When I say 23 or 12, aside from media literacy, information literacy, and digital literacy, there are other elements or components of MIL. So our latest book has 23 elements. It has increased to include, for example, artificial intelligence, privacy literacy, which is very important nowadays, civil literacy, social and emotional literacy. So we have expanded. This is the first edition, and I'm happy to inform you that the first edition, which we published, I think in 2011, has a Myanmar translation. So we have to look at, if you want to read it, it is available. You can download. Okay, these are the key elements of MIL. If you notice, Media literacy has 5 key elements. Information literacy has 7 key elements there. And digital literacy also has 7 elements. My colleagues later, Zoe and Tetiri, will explain further some of these elements. Okay, I invite you to review by PowerPoint, which will be shared anyway by our colleagues. Now, let me go to some parameters in developing social school-based MIL, and this would be my last portion. MIL should not be limited to formal schools. You need MIL in non-formal and informal education. It is also very important that we should start at preschool level because brain development starts at an early stage, right? As the UNICEF report said, children make digital footprints even before they learn how to walk. Current MIL programs are not addressing the needs of preschoolers. I challenge you, dear teachers, prepare MIL course for young children, and at the same time, prepare MIL for out-of-school youth and also for older generations, for senior citizens. They also need media and information literacy. Okay, lessons should be taught inside and outside the classroom. Why? Sometimes what we teach inside our classrooms are changed, or the outside, what we learn outside removes what we have learned inside the classroom. So it is important there is consistency, there is alignment with what you learn inside and outside the classrooms in terms of media literacy. Another important parameter that I would like to suggest is that MIL should not only be a standalone course. It should also be integrated in as many subjects. How can you use MIL in teaching science and history? How do you use fact-checking and verification as tools in teaching science and history? MIL can be strengthened, can be mainstreamed in family life, peer relationship, love life, and even community interaction. These are two very important books, which also you can download. MIL Literacy Education in Asia, which was published by our Bangkok office. And another very important book is this one. It's also available. You can also download this, which talks about false information, disinformation, how to do fact-checking and verification. They're very useful materials, which I hope you will have time to read, but of course you have to download these materials. And my colleagues in this webinar will share with you the links to be able to access this information. Finally, take a look at this MIL competency framework for Myanmar. And I hope that this could provide a guide in coming up with identifying what competencies and performance indicators that you can integrate in your lessons. This is very useful and very important. My colleague Zoe will explain this further. We developed this in 2020, and it provides competency and performance criteria, basic and advanced, in the area of digital literacy. I hope that my short presentation would encourage you to learn more about media and information literacy, because this is the way to be able to survive in today's 21st century, where we are being exposed to a lot of messages consisting of both positive and negative messages. We have to strengthen ourselves. We have to clothe ourselves with competencies that we need in order to be lifelong learners. Thank you very much for your patience in listening. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you very much, Ramon, for giving such an informative and comprehensive presentation.
You're welcome.
Now we are going to listen to the second part of the presentation. Our second speaker, Zoe Matthew, she will talk about the significance of digital literacy and how digital technology can be incorporated into pedagogical practices. She's a founder and director of Earth Resilient Consulting, a social impact responses to the pandemic era and the other challenges facing the globe today. She has a master's degree in education from the University of Wollongong, Australia, with almost 20 years experience in teaching, training, research, and instructional design. She has designed vulnerable population engagement strategy in developing post-conflict emerging market settings. She recently co-authored an e-learning course for Friedrich Newman Foundation for Freedom in partnership with GoFed Thailand to educate public on information disorder and fact-checking methods. She also worked with UNESCO to develop MOOCs course on digital literacy, which can be found on UNESCO Myanmar Teacher Platform. So over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, Maketi. As Maketi mentioned, I have actually had the pleasure of working with UNESCO on a MOOC course focusing on digital literacy. So it's an honor to be here today to be able to share some of the key learnings from that. So as our colleagues have mentioned already, the realities are stark. We have left a whole host of problems to our younger generations, not least of all to in terms of the infodemic. We have left an era in which our younger generations are questioning everything. They are struggling with their mental health, and they are struggling to also have their voices heard amidst all of the noise that you find online at the moment. This is a big mountain to climb. Of course, we have a lot of opportunities that come from being so connected, but there are also many threats. So what can we do to both innovate in the classroom, empower and educate those younger generations? How can we allow them the space, the voice? How can we give them the courage and also the tools in which to navigate this very confusing era? So I put to you that actually what we need to do is start to speak digital. As my colleague Ramon just said, we are all prosumers now. We produce as well as consume information. So this giving and receiving of information, it's like a second nature to us these days. So the language that we have to now speak to our second generations, our next generations, it has to involve the digital. We need to know, we need to be fluent in that language. And that would allow us to understand what exactly they need to be able to be resilient in this day and age. So let's answer that question. Let's think about that question. Can you speak digital? Put in another way, you can think about them as having the skills to interact digitally. So what are our digital skills? Let's think about it for yourself at the moment. Let's take a moment and think about these particular skills. I'll read them out one by one, and you can have a think about whether this is something that you can do at the moment. I can communicate and collaborate with my peers to work together virtually. Can you do that? I can create images and videos by using technology. Is this something you can do? I can analyze and evaluate the content of digital media. Again, is that something you can do? I can find information online and check that the information I find is reliable. So think about that for yourself. Reflect on your own skills digitally. These are 4 common things that we do every day online. So what are the other things that we can do? Or what are the other things that we need to be able to do? Let's go further into that question. Let's put it also into context. In Myanmar, we have 23.65 million internet users. Of that number, we have 99.8%. According to datareporter.com, if this is accurate, we have 99.8 social media users. That's a lot of users. So how, our task is a big one. How do we tackle this need for people to be able to develop the skills, the language that they need to use to navigate, to survive the infodemic era? As my colleague said also, we already have a digital footprint even before we start walking. We have this also kind of provides us with more of an urgency as educators in terms of needing to do something. A helpful way of moving forward, and this refers and celebrates all the work that my colleague Ramon has done, and his colleagues as well, focusing on MIDL, in that it breaks down all of the different pieces, all of the different components that we need to focus on when we are educating, empowering, and innovating to model to our students and our stakeholders what we need to be doing and what we should not be doing online. So here are some of the things that we do every day. We might even just not even think about it. It's a second nature. So for example, what's the weather today? You just quickly look up, Google, you check it out online. This is something that we do. We don't even think about it. The second thing, of course, we're communicating with our friends, with our family. we're expressing what we think on Instagram, on Facebook. We're collaborating for work, for our school projects. We're advocating for things that we believe in, that we want support with. And in that collaboration, in those, while we're doing those things, we are actually using online communities. We're a part of online communities on these social media channels, such as Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Those social media communities have that in their own context, they have regulations as well, which we need to abide by. But referring back to the threats that I talked about earlier, and that were also referred to by my colleague Raman, we have to be aware that, you know, there are opportunities. Yes, we can collaborate, we can communicate with our friends, we can express our ideas, but we also have to be aware that our ideas sometimes could be stolen, or our privacy could be breached. There are people collecting information about us. There are numerous threats, numerous things we should be aware of when we're accessing and using digital technology. In addition to that, we also need to be aware of what our rights are. We have a right to access the internet, for example. So let's look at some examples of maybe some of the threats that you might find. I'm going to look specifically at two of the digital skills, or digital literacy competencies, we could call them: critical thinking and communication. So one example is, you can see here on the left side of my screen. This was a Twitter, this is on Twitter, and it's a photo of the fires started by, well, seemingly started by a Russian airstrike. We don't know who posted this or who tweeted it. We know that the actual situation is happening, yes, but do we know that this is actually portraying what happened? So after this was fact-checked, actually, what was revealed was actually this is a fire, a factory fire in Tianjin, in China. This is not actually a fire in the Ukraine. So this sort of highlights the need for fact-checking mentioned previously by my colleague Raman. Let's look at some other things that could also remind us that we do need to fact-check, and we do need to think about our biases. So I'm going to use a story here that probably a lot of people are familiar with already. It's the Three Little Pigs story. So bear with me while I just read quickly through this. It's an abridged version, so don't worry. I won't read you the whole story, but I'm going to read you two versions. Okay, so I think this one, the first version, is what you are familiar with already. So once upon a time, there was a wolf and three little pigs. The wolf was hungry, so he knocked on the door of the little pigs. Little pigs, let me come in. To which the pigs answered, no, no, not by the hair of our chinny chin chins. So the wolf said, then I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down. He huffed and he puffed and he blew the little pigs down and ate up each little pig. As I said, that's an abridged version. There It's a little bit longer. You know, the houses are made of straw and brick. But anyway, the point is that we have two sides of the story. We have the wolf, and then we have the pigs. Who do you think is the perpetrator, and who do you think are the victims in this story, based on what we are reading? So here's the second version of the story. And once again, I'm just going to read you quickly through the story. Once upon a was baking his granny a birthday cake and didn't have enough sugar. So he went to see his neighbors, who were pigs, and their house was made of straw. He shouted, little pigs, are you in?" No answer. And right about then, bits of straw from the house tickle his nose and make him sneeze, a really huge sneeze. Luckily for the pigs, they were fast enough to get away from the house before it fell down, and took a picture of the wolf sneezing as they did and posted it online, as you do these days. The wolf just thought he was a nice guy who sneezed because the straw got up his nose. Only now there is a photo of him online and a headline, "Big Bad Wolf." And it goes viral with new versions of the story from all around the world. So now there is a story, a viral story out there about the big bad wolf. From his perspective, he was innocently going to his neighbor's house, finding some sugar, on the lookout for some sugar from his neighbors, the pigs. And unfortunately, he ended up sneezing and blowing their house down. That's one version of the story. The other version of the story, of course, is he intentionally blew the house down. So who do we believe? We have to, sometimes we have to think about the two sides of the story. Is it the wolf who is the victim, or is it the pigs? Here's another example. This is Nini and Nila. Okay, so they're best friends. Nini and Nila, they actually, because they're best friends, they've known each other since childhood. They actually also know each other's Facebook passwords. That's how close they are. They one day decide that they might go to Chanda for a holiday. So they play in the sea, they have a great time. While they are having a great time, Nila takes a picture of Nini while she's still in the sea and posts it online, tagging Nini. Unfortunately, some trolls are able to access this as well. She may not have adjusted her privacy settings. She may not have been aware even that Nila was posting this photo of her. And so, of course, she gets very upset and never wants to go online again because of the abuse that she is receiving. So a few cautionary messages there. So we've already kind of talked about misinformation, disinformation, and the reasons why it might come about, it might happen. It's very, very difficult to stem. So what we need to do as educators is provide the tools so that we are preventing the infodemic, the information disorder from actually happening in the first place. It's a tall order, of course, but we can do our best to provide those tools to raise awareness so that it is possible that our young people will not have to deal with so much of a struggle in terms of their mental health, in terms of how much information they have to consume and evaluate, how much they need to struggle in order to make their voices heard, to be able to deal with all of the other big issues, that are facing us today in the world, such as climate change. So what can we do? Great news that this resource is now in Myanmar language. My colleague Ramon mentioned the Media and Information Literature Citizens Think Critically and Click Wisely has been a very, very useful resource for me. And I highly recommend it also for other educators. Some of the things that I will show you now have also been inspired by this book. So it helps that we have key thinkers, such as the authors of that book, and also Haig and Payton, who have provided us with some frameworks so that we can decide on what to address exactly. So if we think about it in terms of components, digital literacy has interrelated components. Critical thinking and communication are two that we have looked at already. So creativity, we touched on this at the very beginning, creating things online, such as videos or social media cards, to help people learn about something. We talked about critical thinking, thinking about the two sides of the story, not just believing everything that you see. We'll go into that in a little bit more depth in a minute. Cultural and social understanding. I can understand and accept that there are different perspectives within the world in which we live. So this is another component that we can address in our classrooms. Collaboration. When we think about, teacher training, when we are upping our professional skills, we are constantly talking about 21st century skills, and collaboration, of course, is one of those. The other three components I've mentioned also are included. Communication is included. In terms of digital literacy, we also have to think about our safety online. So building an awareness in our learners how they can protect themselves online. So here are some of the tools. We not only need to speak digital and understand all of the tools that we have online, all of the components that need to be learned in order to enhance digital skills. We also need to be able to understand what tools and gadgets are available to us so that we can teach digital as well. Of course, including some of these names here. Zoom, of course, is what we're using right now. Canva is what I've used to produce this presentation, for example, and several other tools that you can find online that can allow enhancement and development of those interrelated components that I just mentioned. So, for example, my colleague Ramon mentioned that it's inside and outside of the classroom that our learners need to be developing these skills. And of course, their mobile phones are a key tool that they can use. So they have Facebook, they have examples online on their social media feeds all the time of news that may not be credible, information that may be somehow not trustworthy. So this one comes from this framework. The SHEEP framework comes from the ASEAN Digital 101, Digital Literacy 101 framework, resource. We can get them to look at posts online and analyze or evaluate, using this framework, each post that they see. I'm going to play you a video now. And this is, while you're watching, I'm going to have you think about two questions. The first question, what is hurting this little girl? The second question is, are other people also being hurt by what is hurting this little girl? I'll just give you some audio. Okay, so the two questions, what is hurting the little girl? And the second question, are other people also being hurt by what's hurting that little girl? So this video actually comes from a Myanmar resource, Banzaga, or Flower Speech. You can find it on Facebook. It's a really useful way, and also it's at your students' fingertips, a useful way of getting your students actually thinking about what actually happens online. So like, for example, the little girl, for example, she's, innocently walking to school. Things that people are saying online actually affect her dignity, actually affect her identity, who she thinks she is. You read things online and they can be quite painful, quite hurtful. And even though you are actually, by resharing something, you don't realize how many people actually you are hurting in the process by sharing that. What you can see is what you share only and what your friends say, but the number of people who are hurt in the process, you don't know. So hence the quotation here, your words might be bitter, in the world you don't know. So even if you think that something is neutral, not hurtful, something that is is completely harmless, well, somebody else might actually think that it is harmful. So be careful about what you produce and reshare. This is the message of the video. So resources such as this do exist, and we as teachers should also know where these, where we can source these things, how we can find videos. We don't need to create them ourselves. They're already out there. Another thing which is also already out there is the MIL clicks. So this is a UNESCO resource for teachers and also the public, where you can actually use the resources to provide extra information and awareness building on topics such as your digital footprint, for example, how much your data is being used, how it's being used, who is using your data, that kind of thing. You can use your other tools that for example, like Kahoot or Bamboozle, to create quizzes that are related also to digital literacy components. So for example, this one about how to keep yourself safe online. Using case studies, again, very, very important. As my colleague mentioned, Ramon, you can integrate all of these MIL, MIDL into any type of subject. For example, this is something to do with morality and civics. A South Asian country, for example, ordered an internet shutdown, and the question that you have students talk about is, which of the public's digital rights do you think the Interior Ministry of this country ignored? So they're thinking critically about this particular right. Also, making sure that your learners are aware of their standards of behavior that are actually already out there, posted online. They can read those, and also other, Netflix, AI, everything that they are surrounded by already in their lives. It's just a process of awareness building by self-reflection. Self-reflection is important because this is the familiar context that they are going to be referring to for the rest of their lives. Remember, this is long-term, lifelong learning that we are talking about. If you are getting them to reflect on how they use the internet, how they post, how they consume online, this is the first step to behavior change. And then using that, all of this knowledge that they have been exposed to through those tools I've mentioned already, you can have them also develop their creativity, that creativity component that I mentioned earlier, and use Canva, for example, use CapCut to create videos on digital rights awareness or other issues. And of course, the Myanmar Teacher Platform, we have the MOOC that is up there already, focusing on media and information literacy. E-learning is another resource that we can use to upskill ourselves in order to fight this the information disorder and empower our younger generations. So these are just a few tips within the time that I was able to spend with you. So thank you for having me. And as usual, we will be sharing this and the resources that I have used. For example, the Media and Information Literacy Citizens resource, but also the true story of the Three Little Pigs can be found also online if you wanted to reuse that again, and a few more helpful references there when you are going into your classrooms and teaching your students about digital literacy. So thank you, everyone. And I will pass this on to Matet Thirisway.
Thank you, Zoe, for your excellent presentation. You highlighted the importance of digital literacy, and also you shared the useful ICT tools and resources used in the virtual classroom for better engagement of the student. So thank you so much. Thank you again. So now we will have the last speaker of this webinar, Matet Thirisway. She will share us the experience and lesson learned of the provision of media information and digital literacy to youth, including teachers in Myanmar. Matet has more than 10 years experience in EdTech sector, focusing on the Myanmar market with background in business, economics, design thinking, and finance. She's a CEO and founder of Myanmar Youth Empower Opportunity, which is Myanmar Human Capital Accelerator, upskilling youth with 21st century skill through its online ecosystem, connecting to motivate peers for exciting job opportunities. Ted is also a strong advocate of community entrepreneurship and education equity, with a dedication to building technology, tools, and solutions for the cause. Ted, over to you.
Thank you, Amarkiti. Thank you, Zoe and colleague. Nyama akono tini tuya wanda wa akono ho. Tini o nyama ni ne bo wa pamaluwe de chala o plo wa le ba me. Nyen wa le solution de chala wa.
So let me present this to you in Myanmar language.
Yeah. Great. So I was just sorry, Domino. Ho. Yes,
As Makiti has mentioned earlier.
Sorry, I think it's echo pin like English when as solution that the impact driven attack
So it is an impact so in Myanmar
yeah, so
so in Myanmar there are a lot of like young people and
like a
lot of like young people are in a vulnerable employment situation.
Yeah, she a low solution data or
and the employment doesn't give them like a good paid job, like good payment.
Sorry, can I know like I'm hearing the voices of the English translation, so do you hear it as well or no? Like English translation by January. Okay, and audience
I am not sure whether you can hear the like English the translation as well. So please make sure.
Okay, as of Majaro, you must have your language. Okay, so our the anyway, so the challenges they see
so like there are like challenges, but despite the challenges
digital literacy or the
so MYEO has like targeted like it is difficult to translate
the employment journey
so for an employment journey there are like life skills, the soft skills, literature skills, and like network, and like also like they have to access to opportunities.
I get pedagogy တော့လူငယ်အတွက်လည်းဒီဟိုဒီရှိတယ်လို့ပေါ့အဓိကတော့လူငယ်တွေအတွက် digital skill တွေ soft skill တွေ life
So for
skill တွေ
the like young people, we provide like soft skill digital skills.
ဘယ်လိုမျိုးဒီ skills တွေကိုပေးတယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ညီမတို့
So
ဒီမှာ
how are we providing the skills?
ဆောင်ပြရတယ်ပြီးတော့ညီမတို့အနေနဲ့ဒီလူငယ်တွေပေါ်မှာဒီပေါ့နော်လူငယ်တွေမကဘူးဒီစာတင်တဲ့လူတွေပေါ်မှာညီမတို့စာတင်တဲ့အခါကျလို့ရှိရင်
So not only the youth but also the learners, like we have a platform to provide like skills.
2014ကတည်းကညီမတို့အနေနဲ့ဒီ
Since 2014,
စာတင်တာညီမတို့
MIU has been impacting the lives of thousands of learners in Myanmar.
မြို့ထဲမှာမဟုတ်ဘူးဒီနေမှာရှိတဲ့လူငယ်တွေ
Not only in the like urban area, but rural area, but also we have covered rural areas.
ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်နော်ညီမတို့ဒီတုံးတဲ့ဒီစတင်တဲ့နံပါတ်များလို့ effectiveness ကလည်းအရေးကြီးရပေါ့နော်
So effectiveness is also important.
အကြောင်းဒီဟိုအဆင်ပြေသွားရပါဖြစ်နိုင်တာပဲရှိရပေါ့နော်
So there can also be some like challenges when we provide skills virtually.
ညီမတို့ differentiation က effective ဖြစ်တဲ့ဟာပေါ့နော်အဓိကထိရောက်မှုတက်အမှုညီမတို့ online မှာစတင်တဲ့အခါကျထိရောက်မှုတက်အမှုရှိဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်
So MIU's like differentiation factor is its effectiveness. So we have so for effectiveness, though, we have used like many different strategies, and also like so literacy, digital literacy is very important. So especially in Myanmar, digital when we take a look at digital and media, so we also need to take a look at like infrastructure. So in Myanmar, the infrastructure is also an issue. Like slow, for example, slow internet. The internet cost is very high, and also like there are also device problems, and like the phone has like limited memory, etc. And like since like Myanmar people like started using just started using internet, so they have low digital skills. A lot of like most of the people are using like social media, and like they like the population the population have like more on the population have like challenges regarding to digital skills and like digital behavior, because like a lot of people the way they the media that they are using are mostly like social media. So how can we discuss this? So I would like to discuss 3 points with you. So since the first two speakers have already covered quite a lot on digital literacy, media and information literacy. So I would like to talk about the challenges and also my experience. So like usually we provide digital skills online. So since 2017, we have been providing digital skills. So so we need to look at the tools we use. So in Myanmar, people do not use like fewer people like use email, and like they do not have like habit of like checking like email. So instead they use social media platforms. So in 2017, so we started providing digital skills through Google Classroom. So that is like linked with like email. So like we have learned that like a lot of users did not know how to use email, how to log in. So through Facebook and Facebook Messenger, so we provided like awareness how to open, how to use Google Classroom. So we provided the teachers. So the teachers also need to check with the learners if their learners can use can use the tool the teacher is using, and the teacher also need to check with the learners if they have internet availability or internet accessibility, and like how much time do they have like electricity or etc. And in 2019 we started like registration everything through social media like Facebook and Messenger. And then in 2020, so like based on the data we received, so we the data we have already like listened to the how important the data is, so we can analyze the data. And then like we have to find a new way of like teaching or providing skills. In 2021 and 2022, so our way of like teaching or our methodology has started to change. So the tools and the learners must match. So the teachers need to check this. So or like the tools like which have been widely used in other countries may not be applicable in Myanmar. That's why the educators need to know if the tools or the application is usable or feasible in Myanmar. So so we use like Facebook and like Messenger. So regarding digital skills, what have we done? When we regarding pedagogy, what we need to do is that we need is like empathy. We need to put on someone's shoes so that we will be able to understand what the students have been like struggling, and and another thing is that since we have been providing digital skills 2017, but based on the learners' need and based on the learners' like capacity, we need to redesign, or we need to adjust our teaching. So we use the these training courses. We provide these training courses: Leadership Institute, Bootcamp, Skills Accelerator, live training, blended training, and self-learning courses. So mainly we use the 6 means. So we need to find out like which skills the student need to know. So it should be customized. So another thing we are doing is so the limitation in the use of the mobile phone. So the students have downloaded the information into their phone. So we have to look for the data, and then we need to check like which like students have stopped learning, and we need to find out why they have stopped learning. So we provided 3 kinds of training: live training. So that is like in-person training with the professionals. And another one is like instant facilitation. What we mean instant facilitation here is, this is not about like live training. So the learners have to do assignment testing. So for this,
Hello.
ဟယ်လိုဟုတ်ကဲ့မထက်ရေကြားရပါတယ်ဟုတ်မထက်ရဲ့ဟိုအတန်လေးကလေနည်းနည်းလုံးနေတော့ပါပေါ့နော် audience တွေကအတန်တိတ်မရှင်းဘူးလို့ပြောလို့ပါဟုတ်နည်းနည်းလောက်လေးဟုတ်ကြဲလောက်လေးပြောပေးပါ
ခလက်ဖြစ်ပြီးတော့ရှေ့ကိုနည်းနည်းပြောပေးမယ်နော်ဒီမှာ
ဟုတ်ကဲ့ဟုတ်ကဲ့
အဲ့တော့ sorry ပါနော်ညီမချင်းတို့နားစီချောင်းနေဆိုရဟို mass တော့မချွတ်တော့ပါဘူးဟုတ်အဲ့ဆိုညီမဒီကနေပြန်စလိုက်မယ်နော်ဟုတ်ကဲ့အဲ့တော့ဟိုဒီညီမတို့ခုနကပေါ့နော်ခုနဟိုကျောင်း
I'm
သား
sorry that I have a cough and running nose. So
အရင်ကြောက်ဟိုပေါ့နီးပညာတစ်ခုအစ်စ်ကိုသုံးတဲ့ခါကျတော့သူကနီးပညာအစ်စ်ကိုလည်းသူကသင်ရအောင်မယ်သူသင်ပေးမဲ့ tools ကလည်းအစ်စ်ဖြစ်နေရဆိုရင်သူကကြောက်လန့်ဖြစ်တာမျိုးတွေ
so like the students may feel threatened or like because they do not have like they do not have digital skills, and they start when they start using like new apps, so they have that kind of like feelings. So if we also need to find out why the learner has stopped learning, and we provide like live training. We provide live training. We also provide instant facilitation. So when we provide like homework to the students, they may have like questions. So in that case, we have the instant like facilitation like system. So if they want to know, they can ask the questions, and their questions are instantly answered. So that is like that interactive daily learning is like open. We also ensure peer learning. So another thing we are providing is safe learning. So the curriculum and the design of the curriculum is constantly amended or revised, and the student like does not feel that he or she is learning alone. So that's why we provide instant facilitation. So these are the and the third one, like safe learning, that is That is how we are like providing, and that facility is, this is the example of how facilitation skill is important. The live training, so for the live training, you must be active, and you like the facilitation is also very important so that they won't feel alone. Learning. So Mio like powered chatbot learning management system for delivering learning materials and course info. And like the once the learner is like familiar with the app and all the digital skills, so their learning pace is getting increased. And we also have the Telegram learning group. So as the previous speakers have mentioned, like data is like everywhere. Data has been like collected. And like for example, like if you come and attend a class, and like your friends may ask you a phone number, and then like there may be also like cheating. So therefore, we would like to provide a sense of safe learning. So safe learning community is very important. So that we provide privacy and safety focused learning space. So we have community safety guidelines, social contracts with the students, and we also have an agreement with the students not to share data. And we also have like students' data privacy at school. We also have like security check-ins and student support system. So that is how we have created safe learning community. So like in the classroom, we use ID. So instead of like using the real name, so we provide them with like ID, so that as like Zoe has mentioned like before, so that is to prevent from bullying and also the threats. So it is like bonus, a sharing point from my side. So during COVID, so all over the world, the new style has been adopted. So that is like online learning. So after the COVID and then like post COVID, so online learning is continued to go. So we also have we also need to consider data privacy. So we, for example, like California Consumer Privacy Act, and we also have like general data protection regulation. So before we collect data from the students, we provide the like information why we use the data, why we collect the data. So we, like, a lot of people think that like data collection is important, and like collecting as much information is good, but it is not correct. Like we have to think the use case of the data before collecting. So when we collect the data, we also need to like tell the students where we are going to use the data. So consent is very important. So with their informed consent, we collect data. So the like privacy must be ensured like beforehand. So for the like after baking a cake, like after baking a cake, like you put the decoration. So privacy is not like that. So before you bake a cake, you have to consider the privacy. So before you design your curriculum, you have to consider privacy. So that's why like I share this slide with you. So yeah, there are like ways to improve media literacy, digital cyber security skills. So like we also provide digital skills. You can, if you have like internet, you can join from any where any place. Like basic digital skills will also be is also like provided. Cybersecurity is very important, not to lose your like data, not to lose your passport, etc. So we don't know like we don't know that like our data is being recorded for commercial use. So that's why we we provide digital skills, especially on like cyber security. Another one is digital skills are like important because like we started using the internet long after the other people in other countries. Google tools and email like usages should be taught so that like people will be able to and effectively use Google tools and email usages. And visualization tools are also important, especially for especially if when you are to produce like videos for your commercial purpose. And programming, digital like marketing are also covered under digital skill. So under media literacy, we provide the power of information, disinformation today, knowledge your bias, how to be a responsible digital citizen. So these are the topics we have covered for media literacy. So we have, here are the comments we have received from the users. So they have like the users will come to know the risk of what they share, and like they also come to know about like phishing. And like some people do not know how they do not know how they can use Facebook like safely. So even though they have been using Facebook, but they don't know how to use it like safely. So these are the things we have been providing to the learners. So what are the key takeaways here? So like learning for learning technology. So the technology must be like fit for learners. And another one is the pedagogy must be learners focused. And like instant facilitation is also very important. safe learning is also very important. So to be a better or confident digital citizen, we must know media literacy and digital skills. So since technology is advanced all the time, what we can do is that we need to have media literacy and information skills.
Thank you, Ted, for your informative presentation and also sharing the experiences and challenges on ground. If there is any question for speakers, please share through Q&A chat box. You can ask either in Myanmar and English. Now we have come to our main agenda, Q&A session. The discussion will be moderated by my colleague, Haekyung. Haekyung, over to you.
Thank you, Katie. Minglaba, my name is Haekyung Kang, and it's a great pleasure to facilitate this Q&A session. Today, we've had 3 awesome speakers sharing their insights and experience working in the areas of mainstreaming MIL and also digital literacy skills in teaching and learning. I find these presentations being very much more meaningful and also relatable to us because all 3 speakers have an extensive experience working in Myanmar context with youth like Ms. Thetiri Tsue, and also developing training materials and delivering the trainings for ethnic and community school teachers and also the trainers as for Ramon and Zoe. So this Q&A session is designed as a great opportunity for us to ask our questions and learn more from the speakers. So here I have a set of questions we can ask. And the first question is, what are the undesirable or inappropriate media habits or practices by young people which need to be modified through media and information literacy? And how, if in doing so, how can they be addressed by strengthening MIL and digital skills? I think it might be actually quite relevant to the some of the presentations that were delivered by Ms. Thetiri Tsue. So would it be possible for you to respond to this question? And of course, the floor is open to other speakers as well.
Yes, Ms. Hiton. Just to clarify the questions, what are the the media, the behavior that the youths behave that it's not favorable, right?
Yes, by those habits and practices that are being used by youth that are not really desirable or favorable. Yes. And how we can use MIL and digital skill literacy education by strengthening those skills. How can we address this? Yeah.
Maybe I can start, and then maybe Chama Zoe and Tia Raymond can add in later. Should I was speaking in English. So basically for us, it's very important to understand that digital space is, like, it's more than just digital. It's also our societal, emotional, like it's our being, and it's extension of us, which also mean that, there are also a lot of things happening with us, and, there are like expressions of feelings, expressions of emotions freely on social media. And that has several implications because the data that we are sharing are often consumed and processed by institutions and corporations. And in that sense, sometimes what you see on your media feeds might not be the exact same thing that you want to see, but it's suggested. But if you're a lot younger user, like below 16 or 15, that can lead to serious implications, including, there are a lot of data that being shared, like having food eating disorder because, you see skinny girls and beautiful social media posts, and you think that's the ideal world. So it's very important to be mindful and to share with the youth, if you're a teacher, to just process the social media as a part of life, not the whole of life, to also acknowledge that. And if there is also another point of view is cyberbullying. We share a lot of article about what cyberbullying means, and Ms. Zoe has also shared extensively about that as well. So there are also cases about cyberbullying extension that can lead to suicidal thoughts and suicide in general. So that has major implications on all of us. So digital literacy is very important. Youths are being targeted on being scams, human trafficking. There are a lot of serious implications on how do we use the digital tools. And so parents, teachers, all together as an alliance can educate the youth and protect them from the harm. It's the same thing as you send the kids on an open bazaar. So you need to be aware of who is behind, who is malicious attack could happen at what corner. So it's literacy of digital space and media consumption is very critical. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have either Ramon or Zoe who wants to add anything onto it?
Yes, I would agree with Matet that actually I think this is sort of returning back to what I mentioned about self-reflection. It's so important to have this as a key part of your classroom practice, making sure that there is time that learners have to self-reflect on their practices online. A special focus on digital and emotional intelligence, because as Matet mentioned, emotions, they can run very, very high online when things are really chaotic around you. You don't really know how to compute, and there's just a lot of information to digest, and how do you know what's true and what's not? So just that self-reflection component is so necessary to allow a kind of a habit forming, so that learners start to step back, start to realize that they need to take a moment first before they click, before they share, to think about what is actually in that post. Is it actually reliable? Is it trustworthy? What happens if I share it? So just those few moments where they take a breath, and rather than on that high emotion just click away, think first. So this is one of the key habits, I think, that is important for teachers to focus on, and educators, and it starts with that self-reflection.
Thank you, Zoe. I see, Ramon, your video is on, so please.
Thank you. I have 3 points that I want to highlight. One is young people and even older people should be conscious of online-offline balance. And to a certain extent, Ichiro referred to this earlier. If you're, how much time do you really spend offline and online? There is such a thing as an offline-online balance in order to have a balanced life, right? But young people tend to dominate online. No, so you have to be very conscious, and we as parents or caregivers should know how to deal with dominance of online hours for younger people. The number two is we have to be conscious of our media or information diet, which means what kind of content do you produce and consume? Because as I said earlier, we are now prosumers, producers and consumers at the same time. Examine yourself. What kind of content do you produce and consume? Do you produce 80% of the time watching entertainment or dancing through TikTok? Or are you also into games, ML, most of the time? Nobody could talk to you because you're so conscious, you're so focused with your ML, right? So ask yourself, what is my media and information diet? And the third, very important, and I don't see this as a gap, not only among young people, but even among older people, know the rules. Know the rules in using social media, for example. If I asked you to raise your hands, how many among us now have read the community standards for Facebook? Can I see a raising of hands? How many among you have read the community standards for YouTube, for Instagram? These community standards are rules of the game. What you can do, what you cannot do with social media, with your platforms. And yet, we are oblivious of what are these rules. Before you continue to engage with your social media platforms, please know the rules. Know that you cannot spread hate, yet you cannot spread false news, that you cannot use too much violence, whatever platform you are using, because these are part of the rules. You are media and information literate if you know the rules. But of course, knowing is not enough. Know and practice the rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramon. Well, I think the next question actually is quite related to the area that was addressed by both all the speakers, but it is about do you think MIL should be introduced in your homes, and what are some MIL practices that can be pursued by the parents or caregivers? So we do understand that even for younger youth and also the older group of youth, it's really hard to, as Ramon mentioned, to balance the media balance on their own for them to kind of manage. So how can we bring parents in this picture to enhance, to support this process of media practice, MIL practices at home? Can we have any speakers who would like to actually go first? Maybe I can ask Ramon to respond to this question, and then go to next speakers afterwards.
Yes, very interesting and very challenging. First of all, as I said in my talk earlier, it will be too late if you introduce MIL practices to older children. By that time, their values, attitudes, behavior have become too difficult to bend or to modify. So for me, the best is to start when they are young, at home, And in my own household, I have some rules which everybody has to follow. But of course, there has to be some agreement on these rules. What are some of these rules? One, computer is at the living room, not at the bedroom. Everybody could see what you are working on, looking at, watching at the living room, rather than when you ask them to go into the bedroom. Into their privacy, they have choice of what to access and what not to access, right? The second is, I would apply the balance offline-online life. I would ask them to spend time offline. You know, when I was young, there are many games which I now miss. Unfortunately, younger siblings and nieces and nephews, they don't know how to play these games anymore because they're only using online games. For me, I introduce offline games. Tell them what they are missing. Teach them what they are missing by being too focused on online activities. So these are just two of perhaps many other ways by which we can teach media and information literacy inside your own house, rather than wait for teacher to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. Zoe, do you want to go ahead and share any thoughts?
Yeah, I'd actually like to touch on what Ramon mentioned about, the online offline time, and bring in an example from some friends of mine. They have a practice that I very rarely see these days. They have 2 boys, and they limit their boys to only half an hour of online time every evening. That's it. Most parents would go, oh, my goodness, that's nothing. So, but it actually, I have seen the benefits of this. One of note, which is that the more time they spend offline, the more time they're actually able to use their own creativity. Online, you have so many different sources of creativity. Other people are creating things online. It's true that you can create things online and you can stimulate that creativity in that sense, but we also have an offline world, which everybody forgets about. And this creativity also combined with a socialization of the boys, where they are able to navigate, social etiquette, interactions, everyday interactions in person. These are so valuable in addition, which again develops that emotional intelligence that is so necessary also online. So if you are balancing the online and the offline, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're making sure that your children have that emotional intelligence that they need to have in person, but also you're giving them the opportunity to appreciate the outside world, not just their screens. And through that, to be able to find other things to do. I appreciate that in some contexts, there's not a lot for children. There's not a lot of playgrounds, or, it's not a safe context for some children to go outside. But children have that already inherent ability to create things, to create situations for themselves, even within their homes, to start drawing things, to have an imaginary life that adults lose in time. The more time they spend away from the online space, that's the more likelihood that they will be able to reach out to that imagination, and that can only be a blessing. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Ms. Tetriswe, would you like to add any insights on this?
I think Zoe and Mr. Raymond has explained very deeply, so I think I'll pass. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. In fact, Ms. Tetriswe, I know I saw that you are responding to this Q&A we received. Maybe it's good to also share it in this session. So the question actually was also related to what Ramon mentioned about us have ever actually read Facebook, what's the word for it?
Community standards.
Yeah, see, I definitely didn't read this standard. So Facebook community standards. So the question actually was, is it safe to share information through Facebook Messenger? So this is very specific towards a certain program. And I saw that Ms. Tetriswe was responding this. Would you like to share your insights on this question with us?
I was just typing, so I would share it right now and here. So generally, there a very good messenger platform will have encryptions. Encryption mean, you know, like what you send and what you receive, only you, the sender and the receiver can see. You know, generally Facebook Messenger, if you don't open it, it doesn't have encryptions, which also mean a copy of your message will be kept somewhere by Facebook database somewhere on the internet, you know. So generally on a safeguarding, you want to use encryption messaging that you and only the persons have it, you know, no one can read it, right? You don't want to have another third person sitting in a room, you know, talking. It could be random things, non-serious things, but you know, you don't want to do that. And also on a good a practice, you know, you never know, you don't want to share what you don't want to show in public digitally on a basis phenomenon. You know, you don't want to share photo that might, you know, leak or messages that might leak and that can lead to, you know, public humiliations, you know, bullying, threatening, you know, some way. So even if it is generally Facebook Messenger, is it safe to share information? I mean, if you open encryptions in Messenger, and if you generally use auto delete messages, it is generally safe to share. But that doesn't mean that you should share all the information. It's a general hygiene that you do, you know, like who is it that you're talking to? What is the other person's cybersecurity protocols are, you know, how the account hack, whatever the photo that you send or message that you send will be received by the third party or not, so you want to be sure. So in a digital space, you also want to be very sure as well as a physical space, you know, so be aware of that and, you know, just be used on the general guideline. So I will open encryptions if you're messaging on Messenger, but I know a lot of people won't open encryptions, but then even so, be mindful of what you share. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's very important point for us to know, because it's actually one of the platforms that we use a lot to communicate with family and friends. So unless you don't want that to be shared in public, it's better not to also share through the messenger. Is there unless Ramon and Zoe want to add anything to, on that question in specific, may I go to next question?
I just want to say something. Sure. I removed my background because I want to show a book. The book is iGen. The title is iGen. Why today's super connected kids are growing up less rebellious, more tolerant, less happy. One of the findings of this book, it's written by Jean Twench, who is a child psychologist, is that America is at the brink of a mental health disaster among young people. And according to her, one of the major reasons is technology addiction. because we're not able to guide our children on how to properly use technology. And another very interesting revelation is the title of a movie here in the Philippines. The title is Home Alone Together. What? Home alone but together? Contradiction of terms, right? But this is what is happening in many families. Breakfast table, you're all gathered, the parents with the children. Are you talking to each other? No, because we are holding each other's smartphone. So we don't connect with each other, even if we are together. We are alone by our lonesome, working on our smartphone, and yet not talking to each other. And that is what is likely to happen and to continue to happen unless we are media and information and digital literate. Just a reminder. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramon. Okay, so the next question is, I think this is also mentioned in Zoe's presentation. In fact, when she was giving out an example of Southeast Asia, how the MIL in Southeast Asia was addressed in morality and civics subject. So in relation to that, do you agree that MIL can be integrated in many subjects and need not be a standalone subject only? Or also, can you give any specific examples of how MIL can be integrated in various subjects? Should I give my floor to Zoe first?
Yeah, sure. I put myself in trouble anyway by mentioning that, didn't I? That it could be used in different subject areas. But it's true because I think one of the key areas for professional development that we want our teachers to focus on more these days is blended learning and the flipped classroom approach. So what this means is we're not just focusing on the classroom context as a place for learning. We're also ensuring that our learners are lifelong learners. So because they are getting into the habit, they're familiarizing themselves with the idea of actually being self-directed learners. So accessing resources outside of the classroom, accessing resources online, either before or after class, or even during class. So as Hee-Kyung mentioned, it's morality and civics is one of the subject areas where we can talk about, for example, digital rights, or even key values of citizenship, like empathy and working together, being community minded, understanding that you have an impact on the world around you. That's an obvious one. With MIL, you're also understanding, you're also hoping to build skills in being able to use the gadgets, being able to use the technology. So, for example, say in science, we have maybe something, a lesson on matter or viscosity, for example. You can actually conduct some of the experiments online. You can actually maybe have learners watch a video about it beforehand, before the class, then conduct the experiments within the classroom, and then at home have learners again conduct more experiments, and then share their learnings, share their takeaways from their experiments via social media, for example, if they have a Facebook group in their classroom. So you're redefining the learning experience. You're actually creating a whole new way of learning by doing so. And by getting them to share online also what they have learnt through their experiments at home, through that inquiry-based style of learning, you're getting them to think about how to share what they have learnt in a way that would be understandable to other people, but also to, if you're including a feedback component, encouraging people to provide constructive feedback on their peers, findings. Oh, that's well done, Matet, for example, for finding that out. This is something that I also found in my experiment, something like that. So online communication becomes collegial, it becomes respectful. So that whole experience provides, a way of normalizing relations, a way of normalizing, that respectful encounter. If the more you do that online with different subjects, by blending the learning with an online space, and allowing that interaction online, the more you can supervise how they interact, and that will also transfer and translate into other contexts when they are online. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Zoe. Can I actually have either Ramon or Mr. Tiriswe to share your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I can share maybe briefly on what we do at MIO. So, most of the work and the whole world, especially in Myanmar, I think our digital plays a huge role in our everyday life as just the whole world, like learning, socializing, and a lot of things happen online. So then I agree with Yamazoe on that, like blended learning, or, like integrating everyday life together would be a perfect scenario. For us, what we do, it's very simple. We do like teach leadership skills and such. And then when we do that, we make certain service learnings happening online and make them like case study, present them, things like that. To just integrate that on a daily basis on where, which corner of life the students can integrate, Sorry, thank you. It will be a short answer due to my coughing.
Thank you. Okay, Ramon, do you want to add any thoughts on it?
I want to emphasize a very important principle in MIL. MIL is not only teaching about media and information platforms or content. MIL is also teaching any subject through or using media, information, and digital platforms. So one is teaching about it. The other side, the reverse side, is teaching using media, information, and digital technology. For example, if I'm a geography teacher, I can ask my students to read today's newspaper, check the tagline. Usually the news tagline would include where this story is coming from, right? So when they read this story and it's from Mon State or Sagaing or Rakhine, I will ask the students, identify it, look for it, locate for it in the map or in any instrument that you have, in the map or in the globe. So you're teaching both geography and reading using the newspaper. If you want to teach about the weather, I will ask my students to listen to the weather news on radio or television, and then discuss what they heard or saw on television's weather news. A very interesting, innovative strategy done by a colleague is teaching about the cycle of life, the web of life. People are born, people die. What did she ask her students to do? She asked her students to go to the obituary page of the newspaper. Obituary page is where you announce people who passed away or moved on. So she used it as a jumping point to discuss the cycle of life. We are all born, but we will all die, using the obituary page of the newspaper. Teaching about media, teaching through media. Very creative ways.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, that's also really quite relevant, and especially for our teachers who are actually in the classroom or in non-formal education settings where they are actually delivering and they are actually doing this strengthening and working with the kids on strengthening these skills. I think that was very helpful. So this is going to be our last question, which is also quite relevant to the discussion points that was raised. So we know that teachers are the ones upfront, working with the children. So what can be done? But then, this is also quite new. MIL and digital skills are quite new to some of the teachers and teacher trainers. So what can be done to support our teachers and teacher educators to teach this new concept of MIL and digital literacy skills to our youth and children? What are the tips that we can give for them to take it on to their classrooms? Can I have any volunteer to go ahead first?
I can go first.
Thank you.
So yeah, I as I mentioned in my presentation, I think it's really key that we learn that digital speak first as educators. We are primarily, we often tend to be the models for our learners, and so to be comfortable in that context yourself is the first thing. And so how can we support our teachers? Well, by making sure that we are immersing them in that digital speak. When we are training them, we need to be using all of those tools ourselves. We need to be making them all familiar, with the things that they can do online. And as models ourselves, we also need to be aware of ourselves as digital citizens. In that teacher training, you also, again, I know I'm sounding repetitive, but the self reflection is again key, because in order to be a digital citizen, a good digital citizen, an effective communicator, you also have to be self-aware. So teacher education, I think, has always needed that as an element. So those two key things: immersing our student teachers in technology and all the skills that they need to also be using to be digital speakers, and then also building self-awareness. Thanks.
Thank you, Zoe. Can I have Ms. Tiriswe to add any of your thoughts onto this?
Yeah, I think I would just basically share, it's as Siama Zoe just mentioned, although as we're talking about ML here, like it's all about first and foremost learning, teaching to be aware human beings with critical thinking, so that come first and that go extension into the digital space. And I really like the what Sia Raymond mentioned about, making things digital, like, okay, we want to check about the news, go to the, digital space and learn about those things. So I think just make it everyday practical and think of dimensions where digital can play in. I think we just need to be aware because digital is already on our daily life, regardless whether you live in a rural area or not, it's our extension of us right now. So just to be aware that when we are teaching students, like just to ensure that we, of course, teach digital skills and media literacy, but also to be going side by side with the cybersecurity, understanding, protections together, along with the not just teaching about the usage, but also to be more aware of the implications coming both from the outside, external factor things.
Thank you so much. Well, Ramon, I'm going to, send it over to you, to wrap up. This.
I think it's very basic. The answer is to have media and information literate learners, you should have first media and information literate teachers. You can't have literate learners without media literate teachers. In my talks abroad in other international forums, I always tell them that Myanmar has shown the way. How? Because Myanmar is one of the few countries which has succeeded in integrating MIL in pre-service teaching. Perhaps I can even count the number of countries with MIL in pre-service in my two hands. But I would like to congratulate Myanmar for taking the initiative. And I always give them, and I always show our pre-service ICT modules as models in this regard. Of course, after pre-service training, you have to do in-service training on MIL. And we have plenty of resources. UNESCO HQ has produced many resources in different languages. But why use foreign language when we already have developed Myanmar languages, such as the MOOC course developed by Zoe on digital literacy, and many others. I think I counted 6 or 7 courses on MIL included in our My Teacher platform. The link was already provided in our chat box. So please visit My Teacher platform. There are many lessons on MIL. Finally, we also have a Myanmar MIL Facebook page. There are many social media cards, infographics, video, which are ready to use in your classrooms. It is no longer difficult to manage or to handle, to teach MIL because resources are available. The question is, are you committed? Are you encouraged enough to teach MIL, knowing, like what my colleagues earlier mentioned, knowing that you need MIL to be a lifelong learner? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks, Ramon, for mentioning about our resources and sharing those resources. Just to add one more point on that, you can also download pre-service teacher education curriculum, both year 1 and year 2, on ICT. When you go to ICT subject, within there is a one module specifically on MIL for each grade. So please, you can also download these resources from Myanmar Teacher platform. and together with the work that also Joey worked on the MIL and digital literacy course. Well, I think that's all from my side. So I will end the Q&A session now. Over to you, Katie, and thank you very much for your sharing your insights.
Thank you too, Hye-kyung.
Thank you, Hye-kyung.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hye-kyung. Thank you again for all speakers. You provided us with the interesting perspective related to MIL and digital literacy. So now we have come to the end of today's webinar. So please allow me to take some highlighted points from this session. The core elements of MIL are media literacy, information literacy, and digital literacy. So to achieve our vision of transformative education, we must first have digital transformation literacy. MIL should cover formal, non-formal, and informal education. MIL interventions start at the preschool level. MIL need not to be standalone subject, but it should be integrated in many subjects. Critical thinking, active citizen engagement, and ethical and responsible individual are the outcomes of MIL. We have left a whole host of the problem to the younger generation inheriting this role. So the sheer damage of this infodemic, for example, to their mental health and their stay in their future is undeniable. So one way to link innovation to future-proofing our young people is by empowering through the language. We now all need to speak through digital speak. So I'm certain that everyone is satisfied with the new learning they gained from this webinar. Finally, I'd like to thank all speakers, Ramon, Zoe, Mate, for their informative and interesting presentation. And also, thank you all for your participation. And with this, I would also like to remind to complete our survey on today's webinar. You can find the link in the chat box. We will be greatly appreciate if you can take 5 minutes of your time to complete the survey. It has been a pleasure being with you all of you today. Thank you all again for your participation and time. I wish you a very good afternoon. Goodbye.